You know, for well over 160 years, one single substance, this thick black liquid we pull from deep within the earth, has pretty much fueled our entire world. It's powered our cars, it's built our cities, and it has absolutely shaped the course of modern history. This is the story of that black gold, oil. And that quote right there, it just nails the core of our story. Our journey with oil has been one of deep, deep dependence. So in this explainer, we're going to trace how that global addiction got started and then dig into the incredible effort that's now underway to recover from it.
So here's our roadmap. We'll start with the very first wildcat gushers, see how oil became the lifeblood of our economy, unpack the whole architecture of power built around it, and then we'll turn to the massive shift that's happening right now as we start to look toward a future beyond oil.
Okay, let's dive right in. Our story doesn't begin in some vast desert, but believe it or not, in a little town called Titusville, Pennsylvania, back in the 1850s. It all started with one man, a steam engine, and a giant drill that all the locals used to come and laugh at. You see, these three moments created the perfect storm. First, Edwin Drake's sputtering drill proved that you could actually get this stuff out of the ground in gushing quantities. Then, John D. Rockefeller came along and built an absolute empire by refining it and controlling it. And finally, Henry Ford gave the whole world a reason to want it more than anything else. Suddenly, gasoline, which used to be a totally useless byproduct, was the fuel for a new age. King Coal officially had its first real challenger.
What's really remarkable is just how fast this all took off. I mean, oil didn't just become another product. It became the very foundation of national power and global prosperity. Economists even gave it a special name, the master resource. And that was no exaggeration. Seriously, dominating the oil supply was a decisive factor for the Allies in winning 2 world wars. Military commanders knew the score. Without oil, your tanks don't move, your planes don't fly, and your navies are just sitting ducks in port. If you control the oil, you control the battlefield. Simple as that. And here's the thing. We don't just burn oil. We wear it, we grow our food with it, and we literally depend on it for modern medicine. From the plastics in your phone to the fertilizers in our fields, its byproducts are woven so deeply into the fabric of our lives that we barely even notice them anymore.
But this dependency, well, it had a very dark side. In 1973, imagine this, the tap was just suddenly turned off. The OPEC oil embargo sent absolute shockwaves through the West. I'm talking cars lined up for blocks, economies grinding to a halt, and the world felt the first really painful withdrawal symptoms of its addiction. That shock wasn't just some random political event. No, it pulled back the curtain on a whole new architecture of power that had been built around oil. And it all rested on 2 massive pillars, a powerful cartel and a really ingenious financial system. First up, there was OPEC. Basically, by banding together, all these oil-producing nations could now act as one, turning the dials of global supply. By coordinating production cuts, they could create something called artificial scarcity, which just means they could make sure the price of their most valuable resource stayed high, and more importantly, stayed under their control. Now, right around the same time, another huge financial shift was happening. Back in 1971, the US completely abandoned the gold standard. So with the dollar no longer backed by gold, how in the world did it stay the world's most important currency? The answer, incredibly, was oil. This is the petrodollar system. A landmark deal was struck, mainly with Saudi Arabia, that said oil would be priced and sold exclusively in US dollars. All of a sudden, any country that needed to buy oil, and let's be real, that was every industrial country, first needed to buy US dollars. And this created this incredibly powerful feedback loop. It works like this. Nations buy dollars to get oil. The oil exporters end up with mountains of these dollars. And what do they do with them? Well, they invest them right back into the US by buying things like treasury bonds. This basically helped the US finance its own debts at a lower cost. It was a geopolitical masterstroke, linking the world's most vital commodity directly to America's currency and guaranteeing its dominance for decades. For decades, this whole system held firm. Economic growth was chained to oil. But now, that chain is starting to break. We are entering a fundamentally new era for energy. The old paradigm was really simple. More oil meant more growth. But the new one, it's being driven by totally different forces. The urgent need to deal with climate change, combined with the cost of renewables just plummeting, is rewriting the rulebook.
Growth isn't about more energy anymore, it's about smarter energy.
And you don't have to look any further than our roads to see this happening in real time. Electric vehicles are taking a direct shot at oil's single most important market, transportation, which accounts for nearly half of all petroleum demand. This isn't some little niche trend, it's another industrial revolution in the making.
Now get a load of this. Forecasters at McKinsey are projecting that by 2037, that's just over a decade from now, global oil demand will hit its absolute peak and then begin a permanent decline. Think about that. Nearly 180 years after that first bathtub of crude was collected, the era of oil's relentless growth might finally be coming to an end.
And this chart shows us where the energy battle is headed next. You can see demand growth from cars and trucks is already slowing to a crawl. The future of oil demand, it is in our cars. It's in chemicals, plastics, and aviation. And let me tell you, decarbonizing a 747 is a way harder problem to solve than building an electric car. So this transition, it's not going to be like flipping a switch. It's going to be an incredibly complex navigation. So what role does the oil and gas industry itself play in a world that's actively trying to move on from its main product?
Well, the industry faces this huge two-part challenge. It has to keep supplying the energy the world still needs today while also cleaning up its own act. The process of just getting the oil and refining it accounts for a massive chunk of emissions, about 10% globally, mostly from methane leaks and the energy they use to run everything. So the industry's future might look very, very different. I mean, the same engineering genius that built those massive offshore rigs could be used to build large-scale carbon capture facilities. The vast pipeline networks could one day transport clean hydrogen. The industry's path forward may be less about extraction and way more about transformation.
And you know, this isn't just about the environment anymore. As the head of the International Energy Agency points out, recent global shocks have made it crystal clear that renewables are also about energy security and affordability. Nations are starting to realize that relying on a global commodity that's subject to the whims of geopolitics, well, it comes with a really steep price.
Which leaves us with the ultimate question. For 100 years, the answer was simple: oil. It built our world. But the whole paradigm has shifted. The forces of technology, climate, and economics are all pointing in a brand new direction. The race is on to find out what comes next.